I grew up in a very small town on the Western Slope, about 1,400 people. The name of the town is Paonia, and if folks have not visited Paonia, they absolutely should go. My dad was in the coal mining industry. He was a maintenance superintendent for one of the mines there. Went to undergrad at the University of Denver, and then got my law degree back in Washington, D.C. at Georgetown University.
So I don't know how far back you want me to go, but I was actually born and raised in inner city Chicago. My father worked at a steel factory. My mom was stay-at-home for a while, and then she worked in a factory and then worked at a bank. Very solid middle-class upbringing because my dad was a member of the United Steelworkers of America. So we always had insurance, and he had a retirement that he still collects today at the age of 94. I was the first in my family to go to university. I graduated as valedictorian of my high school class and went to Washington University in St. Louis on a scholarship, and then went to the University of Chicago Pritzker School of Medicine for my medical school, and came to Colorado, to Denver, to do my training in internal medicine back in 1985.
It's a citizen legislature, and we're in session for 120 days, and most of us go back to our other jobs. Certainly we all go back to our communities.
Our minority leader was a preacher, a minister at one point in her life, and then worked in civil rights for a while through the mayor's office before coming to the legislature. There were people prior to this year who owned their own construction companies or concrete businesses, a sheriff who works there. So we really have a diversity of occupations represented there. I can still remember the first time I came to the Capitol. It was after living in Colorado at least 20 years, and seeing people and being intimidated, watching the legislators walk by in their suits with their fancy little name tags on. I have a clear memory of the first time I gave testimony in front of a committee, and I remember actually how kind everyone was, because they knew I was there as a regular everyday citizen, that I had never done it before. They were very supportive and respectful, and made it go as smoothly as it might go.
Well, one of the great aspects of our lawmaking process in Colorado is that a citizen can testify on any bill. And we don't have a pocket veto here, so every piece of legislation that's introduced gets to be heard in a committee.
I really appreciate when I hear from the everyday citizen, and I particularly like it if I can somehow either help them myself or connect them to people who can help them.
This is public service, and I really view my job as working for the citizens of my district, not just the people that voted for me, but all of the citizens of my district. They communicate with us through a variety of means. We get emails, we get telephone calls, we get social media posts. Now, I'm not always going to speak for every single person in the district because there are disparate views in terms of which way I should vote on issues, but it's important to me to hear from my constituents so that I'm at least aware of the views that they have, and try to do as best I can in terms of speaking for their values here.
Ultimately, I do work for all the citizens, whether they voted for me or not, who live in my district. I always like them to know what my thought process was and how I've come to the conclusion I've come to, so that we can each understand where the other person is coming from and why a decision that perhaps is contrary to their wishes is being made.
There was a young constituent in my district who had a medical condition. It was a food allergy, and she needed to have access to medicine that was very, very expensive, and the insurance company was not covering it. My general inclination is not to interfere in contractual relationships between an insurance company and a private entity or an employer. But in this particular circumstance, I found the story to be so compelling, and I ended up casting a vote in favor of that legislation. And I heard almost immediately back from her mom that she was so appreciative of that vote. So it's a great example, not only of the importance of constituents speaking out, but helping to dispel the fear that legislators have their minds made up. Sometimes we do, but sometimes we'll hear something compelling like that that really changes the way we view an issue.
I actually feel like I don't get enough contact from my everyday constituents. I hear a lot from lobbying groups that probably represent the interests of many of my constituents, but in terms of just an everyday person reaching out to me because they've seen something or experienced something that they would like to discuss with me, I don't get enough of that. I think that as long as you follow basic rules of decency and respect, the fact that your opinions might be polar opposite is irrelevant. There are actually many colleagues in the Senate who I probably never vote the same on with issues, but we are friendly, we are friends, we know about each other's families, we're civil human beings, and that kind of discourse is very much encouraged in the legislature. You know, as long as you're not coming with some kind of chip on your shoulder and a point to prove that not that you'll be treated poorly, but that won't benefit you. You won't get out of that encounter what you might otherwise get just getting to know a legislator as a human being.
My grandmother was very involved in politics. She was a delegate to national conventions. So being a part of politics was just sort of part of growing up in my family. And we sort of had two rules, which was be informed and have an opinion. We didn't necessarily always have the same opinions. And I think I would challenge citizens to follow those two rules, because when we are engaged and when people are following the process, I think we get a better result at the end.